Hello, hello. Today I have Allie, who has been a FlowShala member since we started the studio in 2017. And Allie has also done our teacher training. And yeah, I'd love to have you introduce yourself. Allie, tell us a bit about what you do professionally. First, just tell us who you are and where you live.
Yeah, well, I'm Allie. I live in Bellingham, so I started at FlowShala. I actually think it might have been like 2019, early 20 or 2018, but it was soon after. And I actually manage a laboratory that processes clinical samples for doctors' offices. And so I started at FlowShala. Originally, I had gained some weight. I with working so much and putting a lot of hours into my job. And I was trying to reconnect back with myself. And it wasn't working just like going out and doing the activities that I like to do. So I wanted to really train. But it's with coming to FlowShala, I started to like incorporate the language of flow state and also started to incorporate just like some somatic language and like really thinking about posture while working out and while having a movement practice. And to be honest, those are the ways that my life has changed so much coming to FlowShala and working out with the steel mace and the club bells and training flow. It's my posture and it's like my state of mind. And I bring those with me outside the studio. So it's how much and what I'm doing and the mindset change and the postural changes inside the studio that affect me outside the studio is why I continue to train. And so I trained through the pandemic with FlowShala and built a really strong practice at home. And it was after that and the teacher training was going on that I was like, I'm really building this amazing home practice where I'm working out by myself, but I want more tools to do that. And that was one of the things that encouraged me to do the teacher training, because I actually I'm not a certified yoga instructor and I'm not a personal trainer or have any training background. So I came into this just as a student thinking that I was more just working on myself and my practice, but I really found a love for teaching and for the movement and flow state.
Yeah, I remember we would have these in-person seminars where some people would come like online and some people would come in person. And I just remember Allie coaching the people that had like traveled from abroad to be here. And you just went straight into coaching mode because you knew the form so well. And you just seemed like a natural teacher with just, helping people find the landmarks and the mechanics. And I think you doing it for, having your own practice established really helped accelerate that.
I think one thing that has really helped is that I did ski instruct when I was in college, and I've done a little bit of mountain bike instruction. So I like movement instruction and I've been trained on that, but it's not something I do professionally. And it's something that just, I've realized that I'm very athletic and I enjoy coaching or teaching friends. Like I still teach friends to ski now, but it's really now with the steel mace, it's having the language to do it, which has been really amazing.
Awesome. So if you can reflect back on kind of what you were hoping to get out of the teacher training or what like made you sign up, like what was missing in your life at that time that made you sign up for this 100-hour Steel Mace Vinyasa teacher training course?
Well, I didn't have a lot going on at that time, to be honest, or I maybe was going through a big transition mentally and personally, but I didn't have a lot of things I was committed to. And I was feeling a little bit less committed going to my practice. And I was feeling that I needed something to put my energy into, something that felt like it was a project for me to work on and something I could really dive in for the winter. Because I signed up in the end of November and I could feel myself going into the winter and feeling down that I didn't have a lot of things I could really just focus a lot of energy into. And like I said, my practice was kind of dwindling just a little bit. I wasn't motivated for my practice. And I was looking for something to learn. I really wanted to learn something. I wanted to progress my movement practice. And I really enjoyed all the language of flow state. So the idea of learning more about the somatics and learning more about how flow affects training and how flow affects our lives outside of training just really appealed to me.
Awesome. Cool. Well, my next question is actually about some of the big takeaways that you had in teacher training. So I know it's been a while. It's been quite a few months since Allie's been in the teacher training, but just to kind of inform you guys at home of the structure of the teacher training. So it's an asynchronistic learning course, which means that you have prerequisite courses that are kind of like your like your books, but they're visual. And then you have manuals that teach you all of the exercises, all of the drills, like templates for class building and theory. So Allie went through her prerequisite courses. She attended some office hours with me where we kind of deep dived into some more theory-based concepts, program design things, injury prevention, really zooming in on the niche client is really what we focus on in office hours. And then of course, there's movement labs as well. And we've added other new things to the teacher training since you've been in it, Allie. But yeah, what were some of your favorite aspects of the teacher training and why?
Well, I loved jumping into office hours right away. It was a little bit, to be honest, like the first day was like, oh my gosh, they're so far ahead of me. Like, but of course, like it's my first week. I wouldn't expect that I know exactly my niche client, especially having no experience teaching movement or training. And so that forced to think about, well, who is your niche client? Why are you doing this? Because like I had just said, I signed up for personal reasons and to have a project and to dive in. And then now all of a sudden I was thinking about, oh, do I have clients? I'm going to teach this for real. But it got my brain going and it was so fun thinking, well, why am I doing this? Who am I wanting to share this with? Like now I'm going to have all this knowledge. And it was that process and that creative process. Like I bought a whiteboard and I started whiteboarding things out and with color and color coded. And I whiteboarded a whole program within the first like 4 weeks. I whiteboarded my program out. Like I spent hours, like every day, as soon as I'd get off work, I'd like go to my little training room or in my garage and I would just like take a picture, erase it all, rewrite it and try to write it as condensedly. And it was all this erasing and rewriting and erasing and rewriting and understanding like, okay, who am I going to share this with? And why do I want to share this? And why does it really forced me to understand through office hours why this work has touched me? Because to understand who you want to share it with, you have to understand why it touched you.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been, I think, I get chills. Actually, I got chills just saying that because that is why I can't share it unless I'm passionate about it. Because I have a 9 to 5 job. Sometimes I'm not just working 9 to 5. Last night I worked till 8 p.m. And this is my passion. Like this is my passion project. This is what I'm doing for fun on the side. And so for me, it's understanding what I want to share and realizing, I think the big takeaway for me with flow state specifically is that humans have searched it for their whole life or for the eternity of humans. And maybe not realized. And now flow state and the science of flow state is giving these words to these things that we've always sought, whether that was through dance, through other kinds of movement, through illicit drugs or not illicit in ancient times, right? Like snake venom or like different kinds of plants or through chanting, through spiritual practice, like things humans have sought flow state. And what my big question is with people that I meet and people that I'm getting to know even nowadays is, what do you do to get yourself to flow state? Mm-hmm. And how do you get to something that the act of doing it is the intrinsic reward? Because that is a key to being present and a key to being happy. And I want to spread that. And that's a transformational quality. And that's why the program is transformational and why the steel mace work is transformational, because it has the qualities that can get you into flow.
Awesome. That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's important to revisit flow state, because I think a lot of folks come to the steel mace vinyasa or teacher training really attracted to steel mace or steel mace vinyasa as a modality, and there's this hidden layer that, you know, not everyone's privy to, which is the flow state education. And you know, us doing creative things that put us in flow is one like avenue to get into flow, but there's this consistent repeatable outcome that we can curate ourselves with the movement practice that really taps into three really important parts of flow state, which are, you know, the physiology of flow, the psychology of flow, the intrinsic motivation where you sense personal control and spontaneous joy, and you know, time might speed up or slow down. It's like we want that psychological piece, and then even deeper than that, like the neuroscience piece of, you know, ramping up immunity, becoming more efficient, you know, how balancing the endocrine system. And then we even take it a layer deeper, like you said, with somatics. Like not everyone's ready to hear the piece about somatics right away, but I think more and more people are becoming open to this idea that the mind and body are not separate. We have a body mind, we have a nervous system. So our body and our flesh and our, you know, all of the sensory feedback and somatic feedback that we may be getting every single day, whether or not we're aware of it, it's happening. Like we have somatic sensation that's occurring in our vessel throughout the day. And so I think this practice in really understanding flow state and creating a deeper and more meaningful practice is being able to tune into that somatic feedback when it happens, and to ask yourself, like, is this something that feels expansive or is this something that feels retracting? And I think,
Yes.
if anything, I want you guys to take away from this is being able to differentiate between things that make you retract and things that make you feel expansive. Oh man, Allie and I can geek out on this stuff all day because she's been training with us for so long that, yeah, you have developed the language.
I think when it comes to training too, to kind of move it to the training, is that you've used, with all your experience, you've really put together a lot of what you've learned, whether it's from other people or you've put it into a nice bite-sized package yourself. No matter what, you have learned from all these different places and put it into these packages. But it's those packages that I can take with me. And then even in a conversation, I can talk about with other people. I can talk about the 4 players of the inner core. You didn't make those up, but like those are there, and you're like putting it together in a really simple way of like, okay, I'm standing in mountain pose and I'm engaging my whole pelvic floor. I'm engaging my TVA. I'm expanding my obliques. I'm lifting up through my spinal erectors. But I can even talk about that with friends who have no movement background, and to understand, hey, your core is not just your abdomen, just your outer abdomen. Your core is these deep inner players that are stabilizing you. And that I bring forward. I have conversations with people like that all the time because people aren't expecting to have those conversations with me. So when I have them or when they come up naturally, I feel like they're learning something. And then they're like realizing there's something deeper to working out too, that's going to bring with you for your whole life. So I talk about it with my employees that are sitting at desks. I talk about the trifecta. I talk about the shoulder pack. I talk about engaging the 4 players of the abdomen and engaging your glutes, especially if they're at a standing desk, but even if they're sitting, to like really sit up there, because we're working at a computer all day. But if you're engaging these things that are bringing you up and helping your posture, then they're going to be living a better life, because it's bringing it inside and outside of the studio is where I feel like you see the most change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because you can only really be in the studio training maybe 3 hours a week, but there's 165 plus hours in a week that you're doing other stuff. And so the goal is to really understand the kinesiology of the yoga and how to condition these different aspects of yoga asana under light loads so that your body remembers to stabilize when you're doing other things, you know, when you're seated, when you're, you know, putting your seatbelt on, when you're lifting heavy bags or doing your mountain biking or whatever, snowboarding, skiing, all the things. So there's a lot of crossover, and that's why it's, you know, it's a big piece of like functional movement training and not just physical fitness for vanity reasons. It's like everything has a purpose.
It's completely functional fitness. I feel that I don't have to mountain bike as much or ski as much. I'm not getting my exercise, my daily exercise from mountain biking, skiing, hiking, or running. I'm getting my daily core with this or my foundation with this functional fitness. And then I can go out and ski and feel strong because I have a strong core and I have strong glutes and I have the ability to go down the mountain, even if I'm not skiing every single weekend or not mountain biking 5 days a week. It's like, it feels that I'm supporting the activities that I want to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And for athletes too, this practice is really powerful because you're working on not just developing hypertrophy in the muscle, like getting more muscle. That's great. Power and speed are great, but you're working on coordination, reaction time, proprioception, all these different aspects of functional movement that, timing, like all these things that apply to your sport. But you get to train them and you get to be in a state of flow while doing it. So it becomes this like rewarding intrinsic loop of like, you look forward to training because you're like, I know this is going to help me in my other endeavors. All right, so Allie has a special talent around writing and poetry. And I know, Allie, you were coming to the teacher training to really look at, instead of like developing a private coaching clientele, really looking at specializing in workshops and retreats, which I think a lot of women want to create that container. So I'd love for you to share a bit about your vision when you were really into the program design piece of like what you were creating, like what were the aspects that you wanted to bring, tying movement into journaling and introspection and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I am involved in a couple different poetry communities and have met so many wonderful women and men around the world over the last couple of years getting involved in this community. And it's really changed my life because I realized that I did write poetry when I was 21. And when I started putting it out on the internet back in the day, before kind of in the MySpace days with like live journal, it was a long time ago, I had some criticism. And so people that were criticized me, and I wasn't quite strong enough as that 21-year-old to really not care. And I stopped writing. And I found my old live journal blog thing. And I realized like I was writing poetry then, and I'm going to write poetry now. And it's going to be, and I'm not going to worry about what people think. And these are my feelings and my emotions, and that's okay. And I found support with that. And that's been really beautiful. So when I started to dive into what my program design looked, I realized how much I get out of writing and how much a lot of people never take time to just sit down and journal. And I know that journaling has been a part of like the 6-week challenges at FlowShala and taking time to write and journal. And that was powerful for me too. So that was part of that transformation for me to get back to poetry, was doing a lot of the journaling with FlowShala and realizing I had all of this stuff inside of me that I want to get out. So with the program design, the idea is providing prompts and timed prompts along with some meditation. So maybe meditation beforehand, or a sound bath meditation, or a guided meditation, or breath work meditation, different each day, depending. So it's not all just one single type of meditation. Brings you to yourself, you journal with journaled prompts, and then do the movement for an hour. So same hour-long class, same program design that for the Steel Mace Vinyasa, following it pretty clearly with the mobility at the beginning, with the priming, and then the conditioning, and then the decompensation. So following the Steel Mace Vinyasa format. And then after, when you get down into Savasana, then get back up and then do some more journal prompts. And the idea is now you're coming out with this before and after movement, and to see how, I'm curious to see how writing has changed and mindset has changed, but I also want other people to see it too. Mm-hmm. Whether like, I want them to see it in themselves, because the mindset changes so much, and we leave and we have this kind of euphoricness when we leave class. But what if we actually then 2 days later, if I was to do a program, like a 12-week program, part of that would also include that they would need to reflect on their writings each week. Mm-hmm. So once a week, they would need to go back and reread and like underline like their favorite lines. Because the idea of these journal prompts that I would call like inflow journal prompts or something like that, the idea would be that you don't try to write something perfect. You just try to get to that core of whatever's inside. So with the prompt, whatever comes up right away, try to just get that out on paper, no matter if it's weird or funky or what it might be. Maybe you don't want to share it with anybody, but you're letting it release from your body, from your somatics by writing it out on paper.
I love that so much. There's so much like science behind what you're doing there, like the psychology piece, because you're capturing like a snapshot of that moment of like, because there's a lot of inner dialogue that occurs in an hour-long class. You might be like hating it the first 15 minutes and you're having all this negative self-talk, and then you start getting more confident and you're like, okay, this isn't terrible. And then you go back to like, oh my gosh, this is challenging. How do you, everyone's dialogue is different. I'm just giving like an example. And then when you get into flow, it's like peace and like time just warps and you're just like the Matrix style, like moving like a warrior goddess or ninja or whatever you want to be moving like. Yeah. So I think it's really brilliant to supply the prompts or provide the prompts. It's really good facilitation, Allie, to see kind of how you've morphed it into this whole personal development thing. And I just adore it and love it and can't wait to take it myself.
Yeah. And so part is like, I've started doing poetry prompt classes every other week with my poetry community. And so I'm facilitating that. And so I'm really working currently right now on developing prompts and developing how I want the format of prompts to be and what's working, what's not. But what's amazing is I'm working on that with poets, with people who write all the time. Right. And so it's helping me like talk with them and facilitate and see what they're writing, see how they feel comfortable with the different, what was a long prompt, was it a short prompt? Because if it can work for them, it's going to work for other people too. And then I'm currently working on my own practice again, because I did take a little bit of a hiatus once I finished the program. And I actually was doing a lot of yoga. It was kind of just like a nice little shift. I was like, okay, I'm going to just do some flows. And then now I'm like, no, I need to train. Like I need the tool. I need the high intensity ramp up and then come down. I need the breath work. And it feels really good getting back into the studio. And I'm really focusing on my own practice right now. And then I'd really like to start intertwining it all again and teaching it for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to say one more piece of that, like the why it's so brilliant to add the after, because creativity and flow, if you look at the scientific literature, you can just go to Google Scholar and search flow state and creativity. And there's tons of scientific white paper research on how flow and creativity are highly correlated. So you can't necessarily teach somebody to be creative, but you can get them into the physiology and the psychology of flow through Mace Vinyasa training methodology and just going through that prime conditioned flow sequence. Like it's a repeatable outcome that anybody, any age, any body type, even if you have, even if you're an older individual or you have put on some extra weight, like this is an accessible practice for anybody that has a body. And so when we teach people to flow, they uncover this moment of like glimpses of creativity because they turn off their front brain, their inner critic brain that's like, oh, this isn't good enough, or I'm not good enough, or, just the inner critic. You shut that off and you get into this higher, I guess your imagination network, salient network, executive network. Like we turn on higher functioning centers of the brain so that we can actually like see the creativity. I think it's just really smart and makes a lot of sense to add that final journaling prompt at the end if people are willing and you've created that container, because then you get the best like creative juice, and then you've tracked that for 12 weeks. Like think of how much creativity you'd be able to capture, and then the reflecting. It makes a lot of sense, Allie.
Yeah. And I think that people will get surprised what they write, because when you are just like have 4 minutes to just write whatever you could write, I think people are going to be surprised, like, oh my God, like I didn't even know I had that in me. But that is to me, bringing us into the deconditioning, that's where the transformation happens, is we're getting what's inside of us. That is our inner critic too. Like a lot of those inner voices, we're getting them out, or those inner stories that we've carried with us for 15, 20 years, we're getting them out. And that is such a huge power for transformation too, is you're like, now it's out of me. I don't have to carry it with me. It's so heavy.
Right. You're learning how to express through the pen and bring up these I look at it from like, the psychological lens of this might be subconscious stuff or unconscious stuff. And so as you pull it out, you're making room for the highest self to, be actualized. So that's very beautiful. And I'm just so excited for your workshops and potentially retreats in the future. So I
Thank
have
you.
one more question for Allie. So Allie, if you were talking with somebody who was on the fence about doing this teacher training and they're going back and forth, like, is now the right time, or should I wait till next year? Should I wait till I'm ready? What would you tell them?
I think that if you are questioning it, then there's a reason why you're questioning it, and that there's something that you are wanting to do. And if you keep coming back to something over and over again, you're probably already ready for it. If you're already going through that, like questioning and trying to rationalize it, because that's, I think, what it turns into, is it's just that you're rationalizing, yeah, it's a lot of money. It's a commitment, yeah, it's a lot of time. It's a commitment. But if it's something that you are passionate about and you're constantly coming back to, I think the answer's already there, that you just need to do it. And there's not a better time to do it. There will never be a better time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that a lot of times when people are like you said, rationalizing or thinking about like, should I get into the program? I have too much stuff going on. I always say, like, you make time for the stuff that's important to you. And once you sign up, you'll carve out the time, you'll get more organized. And yes, you'll be committed to something. But I think what's missing for a lot of folks is, especially now with online, and a lot of online teacher trainings are non-committal. Like, they're super passive. You don't get to engage with your cohort. You don't get to come to 7 days of classes a week. You don't get to come to movement labs and program design calls and all the things that are engaging. And you have this like very tight container of, anywhere from 4 to 6 months. Sometimes it's elongated for brand new folks, but I try to keep it in a 4 to 6 month window now. And I think that that's scary for people to commit sometimes, because not a lot of things require that level of engagement and commitment. And it can be a little overwhelming to be like, oh, wow, now I'm committing to myself. And now I have to actually complete something and produce something like a program.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, they might not have done school in a long time. So that's a little bit intimidating to try and produce something. But it's that commitment to yourself. Like, yeah, that was hard for me too. I think that it's hard for a lot of the cohort, but you do it and you get it done, and you just incrementally look at, okay, what's the next step? And that's been one of my long time ago in a job. It's like, yeah, the job overall is really hard. But if you look at everything and you break it down into the actionable steps, which I know is like what you look at, Summer, it's like, well, then it's movement labs, or it's office hours, or it's program design. And then you break those down into all the actionable steps. It's not that hard, because each step is not actually hard. It's the culmination of everything that makes it hard.
Yeah,
But
that's a
then
really
that's
good
what
point.
makes it rewarding, because we can do hard things.
We can do hard things if we break them down into small, bite-sized, actionable steps. And it's the small things we do every day that make a huge difference in our wellness and in our, personal development. And I've just watched you, Allie, become so expressive and just change your dialogue and your language and how you hold yourself and your body, and really truly become a leader in this modality and in the spheres that you influence. So it's a pleasure and honor to have you on this interview today, and I look forward to continuing to train with you and collaborate with you in the future. Allie, where can people find your work or your Instagram, or feel free to direct us to where we can get in touch with you.
So I think really it's just Instagram right now. So it's allie.in.flow. So Allie in flow. And I have a lot of things brewing right now, which is great, how I'm facilitating poetry prompts, which has been so beautiful to connect with my poetry community in that way. And then I've started new moon gatherings, and that's just starting this month. But it's kind of this precursor, because I do have the idea is eventually doing retreats, but I really want to start small and just start doing small workshops. And for me to build confidence too, but there's a lot coming. I'm definitely going to launch a website eventually. It's all getting built in the background, and that feels so good, because it's these, again, small, incremental, actionable steps in these ways that even me putting myself out there for a workshop is so huge for me. Like I've never done anything like this. And I'm doing it though, and it just takes time and it feels really good.
Awesome. Well, I have no doubt that you're going to inspire a lot of women or whoever it is that you invite to your workshops. Do you have a first one on the books, like as far as the month that we can keep an eye out for?
Yes. So I'm in Bellingham locally. I'm doing a new moon workshop on February 19th.
Oh,
So if you
wow.
find me on Instagram, you can find out to sign up, and then eventually it will get more official. But right now it's just kind of like show up, cash, Venmo, it's just kind
Love
of
it.
basic. But it's
Great.
gonna, I've got it on the books with the facility for the next couple months. So it's happening.
Yay. So it's going to happen monthly then? Just this
Yeah,
is your first
every new
one?
moon. Yep,
Every
this is
new
the first
moon.
one.
Awesome. Well, Allie, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and for just giving your story. It's always helpful for people to just hear different voices and different backgrounds. And yeah, I look forward to continuing to work with you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.